What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. Today is going to be your Week 8 preview, typical episode like usual. Going to get into some news, which there is definitely some news to get into this week. Going to touch on my top 25. I feel like it's going to make a few people mad as we get towards the bottom of that 25. And then, going to be previewing games like we usually do, giving out my 5 favorite bets, and then I'll send you on your way for the weekend, ready to watch some football. So let's have a good wake and bake sesh and get right into it. All right, news from the week. The biggest news that everybody's talking about. Trent Bray has been fired at Oregon State after just a season and a half, essentially. Um, at the time, I get why they hired him. There was a lot of unknown as to where Oregon State was moving forward as a football program, what was going to be, who was going to be in their conference, what conference were they going to be in, that sort of thing. You wanted to keep some consistency, some continuity, so I get it. I understand why they hired him. But now that you are a little more uh, stable as to where you're going to be headed for the future, and the fact that you did start off the season 0-7, I think they've already played 7 games, so 0-7. Uh, yeah, had to go. It's unfortunate. It sucks for him. But yeah, that just adds to another school to the list of teams looking for a new coach next year. Um, but yeah, we also saw James Franklin get fired after 12 seasons. And honestly, not gonna lie, it came kind of as a shock. I did put in a little blurb in the middle of the last episode because the news dropped after I had already recorded. But obviously, we got to talk about it still. So he's out at Penn State. There's rumors out there that it's like $48 million that he's owed, which good for him. That there's nothing, no better job. As I'm sure they want to keep working, but there's no better job than being a fired college football coach because you're getting $50 million to not work, living the life. Um, But let's be honest. I mean, if he wants to take a year off, he definitely can. But he could easily take a job tomorrow if he really wanted to. Not probably wouldn't be announced, but you know what I'm saying. He is going to be sought after. Is he going to be sought after big name teams? We'll see. Because I mean, what he did at Penn State was good. It just wasn't good enough. And who knows? Maybe a change of scenery will be good for him. Who knows? But the biggest question is who's going to be the head coach now at Penn State? A lot of names being thrown out there. Marcus Freeman's been thrown out there, which I thought was weird. I've seen Manny Diaz thrown out there, which I mean I don't love, I guess, but it wouldn't be the worst. Um, Clark Lee's name has been thrown out there. I think that would be an absolute disaster unless he brings Beck and Kill with him. I mean, I don't, I don't believe that Clark Lee is the reason Vanderbilt is having a little bit of a run here. I give a lot of credit to Beck, a lot of credit to Kill. Shout out Jerry Kill, and Diego Pavia. Obviously, I don't give a lot of credit to Clark Lee. Um, I've seen Fran Brown's name said. I haven't seen it by like your blue check marks on Twitter or anything like that, but I've seen random people just throw that name out there. And honestly, I thought it was interesting. I don't think Penn State would ever hire him. Honestly, I mean, I shouldn't say ever. At this current stage of his career and where they want to be, I don't think they would hire him. Do I think it would be a bad hire though? Absolutely not. I think he is doing so far a great job at Syracuse. A little bit of injury luck, not luck, bad luck, um, is not helping, but he's done a good job at Syracuse. The biggest names we're seeing out there, though, Matt Rule, Matt Campbell, Kurt Signetti. I don't. I think. I think Matt Campbell would be a good hire. I like what he's done at Iowa State. Iowa State was a nobody. He's turned them into a somebody. Um, I don't think Matt Rule would be a good hire. I honestly think if they hired Matt Rule, they would be. I think their ceiling would be what James Franklin had for Matt. I don't think it would be any higher than what they currently are at. Kurt Signetti, I mean, he'd be a great hire. Look what he's done at Indiana in just 2 years. Do I think he's going to leave Indiana? Honestly, probably not. But I mean, you throw a big enough bag at somebody, their money talks. Everybody's got a price. So I mean, I wouldn't be shocked either way. Do I think he is their top choice? Probably not. But I mean, you got to make the phone call. Um, the one coach that I think would be a good hire for Penn State, or they should at least look at, whether or not he wants to leave where he's currently at, I think he should leave. That's my personal opinion. Uh, by the way, and I cannot stand this coach. He bothers me so much. But Elijah Drinkowitz, I think, would be a great hire for Penn State. You pick up the phone. I mean, look what he's done at Missouri. I think he would be a great hire for Penn State. Will they do it, or will he even leave Mizzou? Who knows? But I think that would be a great hire. All right, top 25. We're midway through the season. I said it before the season. We shouldn't have a top 25 poll until we are into October. Well, we're into October, so I've got my top 25 poll, and I'm not going to give it out every week. I'll give it out like every other week, that sort of thing, because it's there's not always going to be a ton of movement, and I honestly think, well, okay, this is going to be very controversial. Top 25. I'm basing a lot of this off of how great are your wins, what you've done so far, not where I think they're going to end up. I think when you see the AP top 25, I think you do see some people who are predicting the rest of the season. This is what you've done. So Ohio State at number one. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I've got Indiana at two so far. I like what they've done a little more than Miami. That's what it comes down to. I've got Miami at three, Texas Tech at four, Alabama five, Texas A&M six. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that top six. Here's where it starts to get a little controversial. Just remember, this is my top 25. I'm just banking it off of what have you done this season and how impressed, I guess, have I been with you type of thing. I do have LSU at seven, and I will take the criticism for that one because that one might be a little too much. I might be that one I will listen to arguments on. I've got Cincinnati at eight. I've got Nebraska at nine. Virginia coming in at 10. I've got Ole Miss at 11. Utah at 12. Duke at 13. Georgia Tech at 14. Georgia at 15. Oklahoma 16. Illinois, I still have them ranked at 17. I've got USC at 18. Mississippi State at 11. Not 11. Mississippi State at 19. South Florida at 20, Tennessee at 21, Colorado, no, not Colorado, I'm so sorry, Oregon at 22. Now that one might be controversial. Why do you have Oregon so low? This one in LSU, I'm willing to hear arguments on, and I probably would end up agreeing with you that LSU should be dropped, Oregon should be moved up, whatever. I've got Oregon at 22 as of right now. I'm sure they're going to move up as the weeks go on. Notre Dame at 23. Arizona State I still have ranked at 24. And then I've got Washington at 25. Now, honestly, I do think Colorado should, or not, I keep saying Colorado, I'm sorry. I have them in my mind for some reason. Oregon should obviously be bumped up, or could argue that they could be bumped up. Tennessee does deserve to be ranked. But honestly, you can make the argument that Notre Dame shouldn't be. I think they should be. 24 and 25, Arizona State and Washington. Honestly, I could argue you want to say somebody else deserves to be 25 or 24, sure. Once I start to get down to that point, you're just like, it's a toss up between like five teams. Here's who I'll put in, that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's my top 25. I'll update it, I guess, every 2-ish weeks. There's going to be some changes in 2 weeks. Let's be honest here. I mean, Nebraska's probably going to lose a game. Cincinnati will probably lose a game. LSU might even lose a game this weekend. We'll get into that one. I mean, a lot of these teams are going to be moving around, but I'm not going to do it every week. I'll do it every other week, just to not to overload you. All right. Start with Friday games, um, and right off the bat, we're going to talk about it. Minnesota, Nebraska. Nebraska's number 25 in the country. Minnesota is a 7.5 point dog at home, and I want to complain about that line. I want to say that it's a disrespectful line. Now, when it was at 9.5, that was disrespectful, uh, and I was ready to complain about that. But 7.5, I'm not gonna rant. I'm not gonna rave because Nebraska really hasn't impressed me this year, and so that's why I was ready to rant and rave about 9.5. Um, and it hurts me to say this, but Minnesota hasn't really impressed me either. It just has not been a great season. Wide receivers, they struggle against any sort of any secondary that has any ounce of talent. It feels like the Gophers wide receivers struggle with. Run game, absolutely abysmal. Defense, they struggle to contain mobile quarterbacks, can't keep them in the pocket. It just burns them. Secondary, hit and miss. They have their moments and then they don't. Um, Drake Lindsay is probably the one consistent bright spot on this team. And that I don't even we didn't talk much, but I did talk. I went on a rant. I saved it for very last because I just didn't want to talk about it. That game last week against Purdue was just so ugly. They didn't deserve that win. They won. I'm glad. I'll take the win. They did not deserve it though. Purdue just gave it to them, handed it to them, felt bad, and just handed it to them on a silver platter. Um, Nebraska. Here's the thing with them. They, like I said, they have not been impressive, but they are 5-1. They're number 25 in the country. If Minnesota beats Nebraska this weekend, I don't want it to be considered a major upset because I don't think Nebraska's that good. Um, Now that being said, I have them as 10. But what they've done so far, it's one of those things. It's if you've listened to me before, this happened to me with Ole Miss. This kind of happened with Notre Dame last year. It happened with Mizzou last year. I thought a team was overrated. I was like, there's no way they're this good. There's no way they're this good. And then they just keep proving me wrong. Win, 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 win. I feel like that's what Nebraska might be this year. We'll see. Um, Dylan Rayola, he's just been all right this year, and that's not completely his fault. Offensive line has struggled to keep him upright. Bottom 25 in sacks allowed. He, since they hit Big Ten play, he's gotten a little turnover prone. He's thrown 5 interceptions so far in 3 Big Ten games. Um, Defensively, oh my goodness, they have struggled to stop the run. But the bizarre thing is their pass defense has been phenomenal. Now, part of it is because teams have such success running the ball against Nebraska that they don't throw it nearly as often. They throw it like 15. Nebraska faces like the 15th least amount of passes a game, something crazy like that. Um, if we're talking group of five, or if we're including group of five and FCS opponents, they have only held, or they've only had 2 quarterbacks go over 100 yards. One was Malik Washington last week, who threw for like 250 something, and then Bryce Underwood threw for 105 yards, which, hey, it's over 100 yards. He didn't get held under 100, but every other quarterback has not broken 100. So this, again, is because they do have success running the ball that they don't throw it as much, but at the same time, to hold a quarterback under 100 yards is that often is pretty good. If the Gophers want a shot at winning this game, and honestly, games moving forward, they need to get this run game going. It is essential that they get it going. And statistically, this is the worst, outside of Northwestern State, the worst run defense that the Gophers will have faced at this point. If they cannot get the run game going against Nebraska, I have absolutely no faith that they'll get it going at any point this season. And honestly, it's probably going to cost them a couple wins. Um, yeah, can the Gophers win this game? Yes. Am I overwhelmingly optimistic? 100% sold on that? No, I'm not. Um, hopefully Matt Rule being talked about as the head coach of Penn State is a distraction. Um, I think Gophers come away with an. I'm not going to say a major upset or even a crazy upset because I think they're level playing fields, but they are the number 25 team. Gophers are a 7.5 point dog. Hopefully they come away with the upset. Another Friday night game. We've got Louisville at number 2 Miami. Miami is a 13.5 point favorite at home. I mean, this is going to be the matchup of a team that has impressed me every single step of the way against a team that has done absolutely nothing to impress me. That would be Louisville. Yes, they are 4-1, I believe, but they just haven't looked great. Pitt basically handed them that game on a silver platter. They struggled against JMU for a while, lost to Virginia in overtime. Against any team that has any sort of a pulse, it feels like Louisville has struggled to some extent, and now they're facing Miami on the road, and Miami is significantly better than any team they faced so far. It's going to be, I feel like, a rough game for Louisville. They are 111th in sacks allowed, um, basically meaning they allow a lot of sacks. And Miami's defense has been great. Ruben Bain is going to feast. Messidor is going to feast. I don't think Louisville has a shot. Now, obviously, they're 13.5 point dogs. Nobody really thinks they do have a shot, but they are a 4-1 team. We got to talk about them like they're almost ranked at this point. Um, if there's one bright spot, Louisville's defense is somewhat decent at stopping the pass. Now, granted, they've played teams like Carolina, Eastern Kentucky, JMU, Bowling Green. But when they did play Chandler Morris, it was technically his worst statistical game of the season. Now, Pitt was able to move the ball pretty well, so I guess that's not really encouraging if you're a Louisville fan. Um, that's it. Miami wins. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Louisville's not a good team. Miami's a very good team. That's really what it comes down to. We got number 10 LSU at number 17 Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a 2.5 point favorite at home. Uh, as we all know, LSU's offense has just been meh. Uh, Nothing to it. Can't run the ball for the life of them. They don't always try to run the ball either, but when they do, it's terrible. Last week, we did see them move the ball quite effectively on the ground for the very first time all season. Now, is that a trend? Is that what we can expect moving forward, or was that just like a one-hit wonder? That's it. We're not going to see it again for a few games. Um, and it's hard for me to back LSU's offense until I know for a fact if that's going to be a trend moving forward. If they can do that again versus Vanderbilt, then I'll finally start to believe a little bit in the LSU offense. Now, we also know that their defense is phenomenal. So they have that going for them. That's kept them in games. Some of these games should have been blowouts, but the offense just hasn't had it yet this year. When we last saw Vanderbilt, they lost 30-14 to Alabama. Now I try not to because I like Vanderbilt. I'm glad they deserve to be ranked. Um, but do they? Because their wins are really not that great. Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, which not I mean, yes, you did it on the road, I guess. And I guess at that point they still had hopes and dreams that were dashed. Um, you were down at halftime. You went on the road at South Carolina, which I understand that is a pretty hard place to play. Um, at that time, South Carolina still had some hopes and dreams. I'm pretty sure that's the game Lenore Sellers went out with injury. Uh, Georgia State, who's not a good team. Utah State, who's not a good team. The one team with an actual pulse is Alabama, and you lost. Um, do they deserve to be ranked? I try not to hate on Vanderbilt, but their wins are not looking that impressive. Um, when Vandy wins games, though, I've said this before, I'll say it again. They dominate time of possession, turnovers, third down conversions. Um, so far in SEC play, LSU is losing the time of possession. They've turned the ball over 5 times, and they're converting just 28% of their third downs. Now, LSU does only have one loss, and that is to Ole Miss. So, I mean, they've still been able to win games while losing time of possession, turning the ball over, and converting less than 30% of their third downs. Vanderbilt, now granted it's a smaller sample size, it is only 2 SEC games, is split right down the middle. When they lost to Alabama, they lost time of possession and the turnover battle. When they beat South Carolina, on the opposite side, dominated time of possession, won the turnover battle. They are converting nearly 50% of their third downs so far in SEC play. Again, 2 game sample size. This third one's going to show which way they are going to be trending moving forward. Basically comes down to whoever wins 2 of those 3 stats wins the game. That's really what it's going to come down to. Now, before I even started looking into this game, I had LSU winning. The more, as we're leading up to the game, the more I look into it, I mean, I just got done saying how does Vandy deserve to be ranked, and because their wins are not that impressive now looking back, Vandy wins this one. I'm going to say it. I just, until I can see LSU consistently get a run game going, I cannot believe in that offense. Vanderbilt is going to grind away a win in this one. They're going to win 2 of the 3 statistical categories: time possession, third down percentage, or turnovers. They're going to come away with a win. Washington at Michigan. Michigan is a 5.5-point favorite at home. Now, so far in 3 Big Ten games, Washington has been a pretty good second half team. Ohio State doesn't count, but came back from 20 down in the fourth quarter against Maryland on the road. They were down 13-10 at half against Rutgers, and then outscored them like 28-7 or 6 or something like that in the second half. In that game, DeMond Williams went off, had over 500 yards from throwing the ball and running the ball, and like 4 touchdowns. Absolutely dominated. Now, Michigan, I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting a read on Michigan. It's weird because they have been great at stopping the run, but have struggled stopping the pass. But then you look at the teams that they've played, and they haven't really played many teams who are good at running the ball. They play a lot of teams that like to air the ball out. The 2 best teams at running the ball that they faced, USC, who is 17th in the country in rushing yards, and then Central Michigan, who is 43rd, which kind of goes to show you the talent that they've faced when it comes to running the ball. Oklahoma can't run the ball at all. Nebraska likes to air it out. USC likes to air it out, but this year they do have a run game, so that's a little good for them, I guess. Now, Central Michigan, as you'd expect, they shut down that run game pretty well. But USC ran all over them. And Washington, with their run game, I guess if you look at yardage wise, they're closer to Central Michigan in yardage, but they are a much better team than Central Michigan. We'll see if Washington can get some get something going on the ground against this Michigan team, because again, they haven't really played any teams that are great at running the ball. Offensively for Michigan, I mean, same story. It's run game is the strength, passing attack is questionable, mainly the weapons, but Andrew Marsh, last 2 games, has really come onto the scene. Played 1 game towards the beginning of the year. I don't remember. Maybe it might have been the Central Michigan game. Had like 1 catch, but then got significant playing time against Wisconsin. Got significant playing time against USC, and he's looked good. Looks like Michigan found their number 1 receiver. About time. If he starts to get going, that run game's consistent. Michigan actually does have a good run defense and can shut down Washington and shut down Williams. I mean, they'll win this game, and obviously that all say all that. You're like, well, no, duh. But we just haven't seen it all click, I feel like, for Michigan at the same time this year. I think Michigan wins. We'll talk about this later. I think Michigan wins. Baylor at TCU. TCU is a 2.5-point favorite at home. When you think of Big 12, I mean, you think offenses, high flying, fast, scoring a lot, and no defense being played. And that is what you can expect in this game. You got Baylor and TCU who have just terrible, terrible defenses and offenses that love to throw the ball, first of all. That is first and foremost what they like to do, and they're really good at it and they score a lot. And here's how bad it actually is. In Big 12 play, TCU is allowing nearly 400 yards a game and allowing just under 30 points a game. Baylor allowing over 450 yards a game and same, just under 30 points a game. Offenses, on the other hand, TCU's offense in the Big 12 play, 29 points per game and over 300 yards passing a game. Run game, though, that has been non-existent for TCU. That is one thing in Big 12 play. I think they have under 60 yards a game, which is insane. Baylor, on the other hand, in Big 12 play has nearly 35 points per game and nearly 330 yards passing a game. This game is going to be so fun because no defense is going to be played clearly. They're just going to be throwing the ball constantly. Baylor's really good at throwing the ball, so they're going to be scoring 40. I say no doubt about it. They're scoring 40. I take Baylor in a shootout. All right. We got number 14, Oklahoma, heading to South Carolina. South Carolina is a 5.5-point dog at home. Oklahoma got exposed last week versus Texas. More specifically, the offense got exposed. Defense still played pretty good. Yes, they allowed 23 points. It's really not that much. But when the offense can only score 6, yes, it's a lot. And Materi even played. Before you even think, was he out? No, he played. They still struggled and only scored 6 points. Run game for them has been abysmal. Do you remember when this offseason seemingly everybody thought, oh, Oklahoma just got the pickup of the offseason by getting Jaden Ott from Cal? Jaden Ott has 21 carries, 68 yards, and is which is 3.2 yards pop. And no, that is not just a single game stat. That is so far this season, and we are halfway through the season. Brutal. I can't believe we all fell for that. Maybe there's a reason why he left Cal. Now, they are going to South Carolina to take on a South Carolina team, or more specifically, South Carolina offense that has a terrible offensive line, bad run game, and an inconsistent passing attack. And now part of that is because of the offensive line play. South Carolina's defense, good enough. I mean, they'll make some stops on Oklahoma. There's no doubt about that. But this feels like a game that if it is a close game and it's like Oklahoma's only up 7 or even 3, 4, whatever you want to say, I feel like this is going to be a game that we never really feel like Oklahoma's going to lose because South Carolina's offense just can't do anything. But I think Oklahoma does come away with a win. All right, we're going to get a couple stinkers out of the way. We got number 1 Ohio State going on the road to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 25.5-point underdog at home. I mean, Wisconsin should just forfeit this game at this point. We saw the Gophers, who I do think are significantly better than Wisconsin. Granted, it was also on the road, only scored 3 points. And I think the over-under for Wisconsin's points are like 7.5, and it's juiced heavily to the under. Because they may get lucky and score a touchdown. They're not doing anything else after that. And here's the thing too: is Ohio State beat Minnesota 42-3. You cannot tell me that they were putting forth their best effort in that game. There's no way, because if they were, they would have won by so much more. 42-3 was respectful. They just wanted to get out of there with the win. Nobody didn't want anybody to get hurt. This is going to be a bloodbath. Ohio State by a million. Another stinker. Michigan State at number 3, Indiana. Indiana is a 27.5-point, almost said underdog at home, favorite at home. Michigan State has looked terrible. Aiden Childs has just been awful the last 2 games. Now, he may not play in this game, still unclear. Even if even if he does play, I don't think it matters. He again has not looked good the last few weeks. Indiana looks great. Michigan State does not. Easy win for Indiana. Let's see. We've got number 5 Ole Miss at number 9 Georgia. Georgia is a 7.5 point favorite at home. I mean, Ole Miss got caught looking ahead to this game last week against Wazoo. Kept that one a little closer than I think anybody would have liked, especially Ole Miss fans. Um, Way closer than it should have been. Now we got Georgia coming off a win at Auburn. That was a very questionably called game. Georgia was down 10-0 at half, or down 10-0, was about to be down 17-0, got the ball back on a controversial call, completely swung the momentum of the game, kicked a field goal before half, and the rest is history. Now, this is not because of last week. Just keep that in mind. This has been all season long so far. Ole Miss has done nothing to impress me so far. Yes, I know they beat LSU, so I guess that's kind of impressive. But outside of that LSU game, they've just been pretty underwhelming. Kentucky, one of the worst Power 4 teams out there, kept it close. Arkansas, who I'll give them credit, is they aren't as bad as Kentucky. They're a decent team. Kept it close. And then Washington State, who had no business keeping a game close, kept it close. Now, I can't, dump on Ole Miss and not dump a little bit on Georgia. They almost lost to Tennessee. Bama beat them, and then they were down 10-0 in this Auburn game before everything just hit the fan. But on the road at Tennessee, home against Alabama, and on the road at Auburn are significantly harder than on the road at Kentucky, home versus Arkansas, home versus LSU, and then every other Group of 5 and FCS team they've played other than that. I mean, we know this Ole Miss offense is electric, especially with Trinidad at quarterback. But the defense is the question mark. Run defense is terrible. And so they've played 3 teams with bottom 25 run games. And those, that includes LSU in that one. Those teams average 125 yards per game and 4.4 yards per carry. I mean, 125 yards per game, that's not bad. You're also going against, bottom 25 teams in the, run games in the country. They have played 3 teams that have run games that are in the top half of the country. In those games, those teams ran for 190 yards per game at 5 yards a pop. Georgia is 40th in the country in yards per game when it comes to running the ball. Georgia's defense is very good. Yes, it sometimes takes them a half to get going, but Georgia's defense is still very good. I think they run all over Ole Miss and come away with the win. Number 7, Texas Tech at Arizona State. Arizona State is a 7.5 point dog at home. Still not sure if Sam Levitt is playing or not. I would assume he's trending towards playing. Now that will determine, at least in my opinion, how close I think this game is going to be. If Jeff Sims is the starter, it's an easy win for Texas Tech. If Levitt is the starter, then maybe it's close for like a half or 3/4, but Texas Tech still comes away with the win. Now, I also don't know who the quarterback's going to be for Texas Tech, but when it comes to that, I don't care who the quarterback is, honestly. Baron Morton's been the starter all year, but he's been in and out with injury, and every time he goes out, Will Hammond comes in, and for the most part, looks pretty good. Really was the key to beating Utah a few weeks back. So I don't care who the quarterback is. Texas Tech wins. We got number 21 Texas at Kentucky. Kentucky is a 12.5 point dog at home. And I mean, what a dumpster fire Kentucky is. They are literally one of the worst Power 4 teams in the country. They're not the worst. Teams like Stanford still exist, so I mean there is that, but they're down there. Now, usually, even when Kentucky is not the greatest team, you can always count on the defense to be good. Maybe the run game is fine on offense, but usually the offense is not good. That hasn't been the case this year. Kentucky is currently 97th in points allowed, 108th in yards allowed, 113th in passing yards allowed, and 86th in rush yards allowed. And those numbers have gotten worse since we entered conference play. I mean, this isn't a shock. Kentucky's offense is terrible. Has been all year, but the defense to be this bad is a little shocking. Now, in SEC play, I think they're allowing like 30 plus points a game so far. I think Georgia, I'm trying to think, Ole Miss scored 28, and then Georgia scored 35, and can't even think of who else they played that scored 35. I'm not going to say that Texas has fixed all their problems against Oklahoma, but when I give you all these numbers on how bad Kentucky's been, they're averaging 16 points a game in SEC play. I mean, there's just no way that Kentucky has the firepower to expose all of Texas' problems for a full game. Maybe for a quarter, sure. Uh, Texas adjusts. There's just no way. Kentucky has shown me absolutely nothing so far this year to makes me think that makes me think they have any shot at upsetting Texas or even honestly covering at this point. Penn State at Iowa. Iowa is a 2.5 point favorite at home. I mean, I don't have to say it. Penn State's this is probably rock bottom. Coming off terrible losses to Northwestern, UCLA after taking Oregon to overtime. Um, Drew Aller's out for the year. James Franklin's been fired. Playoff hopes are all but lost. Um, this is still a very talented Penn State team. They still have a lot of talent on their roster. Yes, yes, they've lost 3 games. I understand that. Yes, they were not great losses. When we look at those games, offense is the biggest issue in my opinion. In the Oregon game, defense played lights out. Offense played for like a quarter, half a quarter, whatever. When you look at the UCLA game, that was a little bit of both. Offense took a minute to get going. Once they did, they were firing on all cylinders. But the defense couldn't get off the field, allowed UCLA to control the game. And then last week versus Northwestern, I mean, defense played fine for the most part. Offense just lacks the explosiveness, essentially, is what it comes down to. But they have the talent on the team. I'm not, well, okay, we'll talk about Iowa here for a sec. Because I'm not going to just spend the whole time talking about Penn State, although I probably could. We'll talk about Iowa real quick. Iowa's offense. So far this season, they have thrived against very bad defenses. UMass, UAlbany, Rutgers. And they have struggled against good defenses. Iowa State, Indiana. Penn State has a good defense. Iowa has proven if they go up against a good defense, they're going to struggle. Yes, Drew Allar's out for the year, but they still have 2 great running backs. They have enough talent on that offense. They have more than enough talent on that defense. I'm not sure how Penn State's going to rebound after Franklin being fired. And that's why I'm struggling to fully back Penn State winning. We are going to talk about this game later, though, spoiler. I'm not going to give my pick right now, but it's hard to know because, again, Iowa offense cannot do anything against a good defense. Yes, the defense is good, but they're not as good as they've been. Penn State has all the talent in the world to destroy Iowa, but they just lost their starting quarterback and their head coach. How do they mentally recover for them? Because they clearly have not mentally recovered from the loss to Oregon. But at some point, they've got to snap out of it. Could that be this game? Maryland at UCLA. UCLA is a 3.5 point favorite at home, and I'm fighting it again. I'm fighting that urge to believe in Maryland past the month of September. Um, I mean, when you look at Maryland, there's so many things to like, but there's also a lot to dislike like the history of Maryland sucking in October and November. UCLA been on fire the last two games. I mean, everybody knows it. Everybody's seen it. Everybody's talked about it. And the key to those wins, they've been just dominating time of possession, holding onto the ball, controlling the game. I lean UCLA in this one because when you look at Maryland, I want to believe so bad, but when you look at Maryland, they always suck when they hit October. That's obviously known. Malik Washington has been good. That's a plus. Run game has been abysmal. That's definitely a negative. Wide receivers have dropped quite a few passes. That's a negative. Defense been great at getting after the quarterback, except weirdly Nebraska, which was strange. But for the most part, been good at getting after the quarterback. That's a plus. There's just so much good, but also so much bad that I'm fighting the urge, but I'm not backing the urge. I'm not doing it. We've seen it when UCLA can control time of possession and can control the game, they're going to win the game. Take out, if we look at just G5 and P4 opponents for Maryland, they've only won time of possession once, and it was last week versus Nebraska, and they ended up losing that game. And by winning time of possession, they won by like a minute, maybe two. The lack of run game, a lot of drop passes, potentially some 3-and-outs. Defense has been fine. UCLA is probably going to control time of possession and come away with the win. All right, we got the third Saturday in October. Number 11 Tennessee heading to Alabama to take on number 6 Alabama. They are an 8.5-point favorite at home. Tennessee's only loss is to Georgia in overtime, and Bama's only loss is to Florida State to start the season, which I've said it a few times already. I'm ready to write off that loss. Now, shocker, Tennessee has a great offense. Top scoring offense, 4th in passing, 6th in yards. Defensively, though, it's been a struggle, which I thought this defense was going to be very good this year. 105th in points allowed, 123rd in passing yards allowed, and 101st in yards allowed. Now, that being said, they are also the number 1 team at getting after the quarterback, and I think they are going to have some success at doing that in this game. Another thing they've been great at, turning the ball over, or getting turnovers. Now, we'll talk about offense, but Joey Aguilar can produce some turnovers as well. But this defense is shockingly good at really good at some things, but then just brutally terrible at others. Now, Alabama, we've seen Ty Simpson sling it around. Run game has struggled. Jam Miller was out for a while, came back, struggled versus Georgia, got it going against Vanderbilt, and then didn't really get it going last week against Missouri. So it's been very inconsistent. It's actually really only flashed once. Now, Jam Miller's in concussion protocol currently, so I don't even know if he's going to play this weekend. If he does not play, Alabama's going to struggle to run the ball. If he does play, I think obviously their chances increase. But yeah, I don't like Alabama's chances to run the ball if he is going to be out. Alabama can't stop the run either. Only one team. They were only able to stop one team, and that was Wisconsin, who's been an absolute dumpster fire. And when you think of Josh Heupel teams, I say this all the time, you always think high-flying passing game, all that jazz. But really, they are a run-first team, and they are very good at it. They have a 3-headed rushing attack, and I feel like we may see kind of what Tennessee and Heupel like to do against Georgia, get off to a quick start, dominate that first quarter. I think we might see that with Tennessee, and if they can do that, get off to a quick start, and then control the clock and run the ball, yes, they do have a shot to win this game. The only problem is I think Alabama is going to have absolutely no problem moving the ball against this Tennessee defense, just based on what we've seen so far. I think Alabama wins this one, but I think this one could be a classic. Number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 9.5-point favorite at home. Notre Dame seems to have fixed their defense. First 3 games, Miami, A&M, Purdue, all scored 30, 40. I guess Miami scored 27, whatever. They've scored a lot. Last three games, Arkansas, who has got a great offense, scored 13. Boise State, whose offense is pretty good, scored 7. And NC State's offense has also been decent enough, only scored 7. And then their offense has also been humming. Notre Dame's that is what I'm referring to. Uh, Notre Dame has looked, even in their losses, Notre Dame has looked good, honestly. Now, for USC, we all know how great the offense is. It's a Lincoln Riley offense. It's going to be good. It's the defense that's always the question mark. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people are like, they're praising USC's defense and praising Danton Lynn. And maybe it's just because it is a step up from Alex Grinch as your defensive coordinator. So I guess we can go with that. But honestly, I don't think their defense is very good. Purdue was able to move the ball pretty well against them. Michigan State was able to score 31 points somehow. Illinois scored 34 and had 500 yards of offense. Michigan struggled a little bit, but that's 4 Big Ten games. 3 of them thrived against your defense. I don't think their defense is that good. Now, if you had asked me about this game 3-ish weeks ago, I would have told you that Notre Dame's going to get torched. USC is going to throw the ball all over that secondary and come away with a huge win. But in those last 3-ish weeks, like I mentioned, Notre Dame's defense, they've really turned it around. First 3 games, they were allowing 280 yards passing a game. Now they are allowing 201 yards a game through the air. They really turned that part of the defense around. I don't know what changed. I don't know if Marcus Freeman got in there and started yapping. I don't know. But they have turned it around the last 3 games. I think Notre Dame's offense is better than most of the offense USC has faced so far. Their defense has gotten better, like I mentioned, over the last 3 weeks. I think Notre Dame comes away with the win. Mizzou at Auburn. Mizzou is the number 16 team. Last week, Mizzou proved that they are, in fact, a very good team. Last week, Auburn may or may not have gotten shafted by the refs versus Georgia. But either way, they've just been meh this year. They do have a very good run defense, though. And if they are able to shut down Ahmad Hardy and force Pribula to beat them with his arm, they do have a shot to win. The only problem is I do think Pribula does have a good shot to beat them with his arm. Auburn's offense probably can't do enough against this Mizzou defense based on everything we've seen from Auburn this year. I am a Mizzou hater. I am a Drinkwitz hater, but I do think Mizzou wins this game. All right, last game we'll really touch on is the Holy War. We got number 23 Utah at number 15 BYU. BYU is a 3.5-point dog at home. I mean, this is going to be the first time that BYU has really been tested this year. Their 2 toughest games so far have been Colorado and Arizona. Neither is a good or great team. They were down early, 14-0 to Colorado, came back and ended up winning 24-21. They were down 10 to Arizona with 5 minutes left in the game, tied the game up, won it in double overtime. Bear Bachmeier, he's been great so far this year, but again, we're talking about against 6 opponents that are definitely inferior. But still, he's been great. Utah, we saw the beatdown from Texas Tech. Now, I think that game is very misleading. The score of that game was very misleading because going into the fourth quarter, it was I think it was either 10-3 or 13-10, something like that game. And then backup quarterback's been playing at that point. You have no tape on this guy. You don't know much about him necessarily, and he just torches you for 24 points in that fourth quarter. Now, also some of that is Utah trying to go for it on 4th down, struggling to get it, giving Texas Tech a short field, whatever. That score was very misleading for how that game actually was. Since then, they've just dominated everybody else. That was the one game where they have not dominated. Devin Dampier has been a breath of fresh air for Utah. They've just had too much inconsistency at quarterback and injuries at quarterback the last few years that it's nice to see Dampier as their quarterback. He is their leading rusher for their three-headed rushing attack. Utah is ninth in total yards and in total rush yards, and BYU has the 23rd ranked run defense. Now, that's a little misleading because they've only faced one rushing attack that is even inside the top 75, and that is West Virginia. Um, so that's a very misleading stat that they're the 23rd ranked run defense. I know it's a rivalry game. I know records don't matter. Throw out the record books, whatever. And as great as Bear Bachmeier has been, this is easily the best team that they have faced so far, and this is the best defense he's faced so far. And I think Utah is the second best team in the Big 12. I really think Utah wins this one. All right. We'll just kind of touch on some other games. North Carolina at California on Friday. California's a 9.5 point favorite. I think Cal gets off the struggle bus and wins this by 2 scores. I've mentioned it before. UNC is being outscored by Power 4 points, 120-33. They will always have that first drive against TCU to open the season. Number 12, Georgia Tech at Duke. Duke is actually a 1.5 favorite at home. I'm always going to say this. If Haynes King plays, Georgia Tech has a shot. Duke's offense has been on fire lately. They like to air it out. As we know, Georgia Tech likes to run it down your throat. On the flip side, defensively, Georgia Tech is pretty good at stopping the pass, so that works. And Duke has an all right run defense, so that works. So whose defense breaks? That's really what it comes down to. And I think it's going to be Duke's defense that breaks. I think Georgia Tech controls the ball, and I think they grind out a win. Arizona at Houston. Houston is a 1.5 dog at home. This one confuses me, honestly. Both teams have met offenses. Defenses have been good for both teams, though. I will give them that. And maybe this is just me, and maybe I have a bias against Arizona, but I think Arizona sucks. I think Fafita is not good. Maybe I'm missing something in this, and I don't know why, because Houston's at home, but they're the underdog. Again, maybe I'm just super biased towards everyone against Arizona, but I feel like Houston wins this one. All right, we got Purdue at Northwestern. Northwestern is a 3.5 point favorite at home. This is the battle of the bad. Northwestern did take down UCLA before they exploded and beat Penn State and then Michigan State. And Purdue threw away that game against the Gophers, literally and figuratively. While I do think Purdue is on the right path to be a mediocre team in the Big Ten, they cannot stop turning the ball over. It's been an issue all year. They are tied with Syracuse as the worst Power 4 team at turning the ball over. And on top of that, they are tied with Oklahoma as the worst Power 4 team in producing turnovers. It's just been brutal. They give it away, but they can't take it away. Give me Northwestern in this one. Cincinnati at Oklahoma State, just an absolute bloodbath. Give me Cincinnati in that one, obviously. Number 8, Oregon on the road at Rutgers, bloodbath. Oregon by a million. Washington State at number 18, Virginia. Virginia is a 17.5 point favorite at home. Don't be fooled by that Washington State close game against Ole Miss last week. I feel like that was more on Ole Miss than it was Washington State. I think Virginia's offense has been great all year. I think they clinch a bowl game this weekend. And finally, Texas A&M, number 4 in the country at Arkansas. Arkansas is a 7.5 point dog at home. I have a future on Texas A&M to make the playoffs. Right now they are 6-0, and I am feeling pretty good about that future. But it is A&M, and they always choke at some point. So for every game the rest of the season, I am going to be nervous because it is a winnable. I'm not going to go as far as to say they'll win out, but it is a winnable schedule moving forward. But I am going to be nervous, and that includes this week versus Arkansas. We see Arkansas take a lot of teams to the wire and then shoot themselves in the foot, whether it's at the wire or earlier in the game. And one of these times it's going to break through, and they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot and they're going to come away with a win. I hope it's not this week. But again, Arkansas, they have an interim head coach right now, Bobby Petrino. Always see it from teams when they fire a head coach. They always win a game they shouldn't win. We already saw UCLA do it. Watch out for Arkansas to finally have that game. I guess this would only be their second game, but watch out for A&M to be that game that Arkansas jumps out and doesn't shoot themselves in the foot and pushes A&M to the brink and maybe comes away with a win. Maybe this is their Tennessee from last year. I really hope that doesn't happen, but this game does make me nervous if I'm being honest with you. I do think A&M has enough talent and depth you know, at on this team to come away with the win, um, but it does make me nervous. All right, let's talk about my favorite bets. Um, Again, still on probation, not out of the clear yet. So let's get some winners this weekend. So I've got some on here that, I mean, you may not like the odds, and I understand that. I've got two that the odds are not the greatest, but then three that you should enjoy. I've got Georgia third quarter -2.5, -128. This is hitting every single game this year. They are very much a second half team. So give me Georgia third quarter. Give me Ohio State over 33.5 at -130. They're playing Wisconsin. They're not even going to have to try and they'll get 42 points. So give me Ohio State over 33.5. I'm going to take Penn State money line +118. I think they're going to win this game. That's all I'm going to say. They have enough talent to do it. Give me Tennessee first quarter +2.5 at -106. I think, like I said earlier, they're going to try to do what they did against Georgia. Start out hot, get a lead, and then hopefully maybe hold on to that lead and keep the ball away from Alabama's offense. Tennessee first quarter. And then finally, Utah -3.5 at -104. I mean, I just think that BYU is going to be completely outmatched in this game. And again, this is their very first test. This is Bear Bachmeier's very first real test. I don't think it goes well for them. And then for the Power 4 Moneyline Parlay, give me Houston out of the Big 12. Again, I just don't know what I'm missing on this line. Give me Houston to win. Give me Vanderbilt to beat LSU out of the SEC. Give me Northwestern to beat Purdue out of the Big Ten. And then give me Georgia Tech to win on the road at Duke from the ACC. All of those come out to be +998. Again, I feel really good about these bets. Let's get back on a winning track so that I can get off of probation. But thank you all for joining me. Enjoy the football this weekend. Happy betting, and I will be back on Monday morning to react and recap Week 8.